A quick note before we get into the episode. Oversharing is a podcast for entertainment purposes only. It is not a medical podcast and does not constitute medical or psychological advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or mental health professional. Let's do some intentions. I'll read them. Dear Jordana and Dr. Naomi, I'm a huge fan of the pod and I love listening every week as you two thoughtfully and truthfully discuss listener issues. Thank you so much for what you do. My reason for writing in is I'm looking for an intention or advice for an issue I've been dealing with. My husband is in the military and has been on deployment for 6.5 months now. For context, I'm 26, my husband's 27, and we've been married for a little over a year. Overall, the deployment has been going pretty well for us as a couple. That's not to say I don't miss him, but despite the 16-hour time difference, we have been able to text daily and usually FaceTime once or twice a week. I also have my own job, friends, and hobbies to keep me busy and my mind off the fact that my partner and best friend is across the globe. Now for the issue. Ever since my husband left, I've been having sex dreams involving nearly every man in my life except for my husband. My dreams have featured everyone from ex-boyfriends to coworkers to my husband's friends and even my husband's brother just last night. I'm not having thoughts about these people during my waking hours, and they aren't all people I would even label as objectively attractive. I don't normally try to place meaning on dreams or interpret them as I'm a very active dreamer, and the only other recurring dreams I've had in my life have been anxiety dreams. But this carousel of sex dreams has been reoccurring for months now and leaves me feeling shameful, icky, and guilty when I wake up. I feel like my subconscious is torturing me by picking out people who are particularly and increasingly inappropriate to be featured in these sex dreams. It has been getting worse and more frequent as time has gone on, and the guilt and shameful feelings are lingering beyond waking up and weighing on me. I also don't feel like there's anyone in my life I can talk to about this because while it's just a dream, I know it would be hurtful to tell my husband I'm having these dreams while he's gone, and any friends or family would probably assume these dreams mean I subconsciously want to cheat on my husband. I would love an intention for how to put my mind at ease and stop feeling guilty over something I can't control. Also, and if you have any advice on how to make these dreams go away or feature my own dang husband instead, I'm all ears for any suggestions. A 50 Shades of Grey in my sleep fetch. P.S. If I'm feeling 100% honest, I think these dreams could be linked to a fear of cheating on my husband and ruining my marriage. Very early on into dating my husband, I cheated on him and I carried a lot of guilt and shame for that long after we had worked through it as a couple. My husband carries no lingering distrust of me because of that early incident, but I don't know that I've truly let myself off the hook for that and probably never will.
She knows what's happening here, I think. She's not cheating on him in real life, but she's probably not like fully trusting herself. The same way we talk about when there's infidelity and the wounded partners, like if you could ever do something like that, then like, how could I ever really trust you again? Because you are capable of doing that. So I think she's having that towards herself. Like if I'm capable of doing that, maybe I'm capable of doing that again. And I think these dreams, the fact that they're getting increasingly intense and like more shocking with like the most recent sounds like being his brother, something's calling for her attention here. And I think it's what she says, which is like this idea that she's not trusting herself, that she feels shame for what happened in the past. And he is really far away for a really long time. And probably some fear of like, am I capable of doing this again? Am I capable of ruining my marriage? And the last piece, I think, is maybe the two of them need a conversation, not about the dreams, because the dreams are just a symptom.
Right. I wouldn't mention that.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't mention the dreams. I agree. But a conversation about like, how are you feeling? Like, I know we had this, rift in the beginning. We had this breach of trust when we first met. And, I'm curious if this might be hard for you, if any of that comes up for you now that we're far apart. I would kind of be surprised if it doesn't in some way, shape, or form. I think when couples are long distance for a long period of time, it's normal to have these feelings of insecurity, and maybe talking to him about that, reassuring him, and in turn, maybe reassuring yourself might help you just kind of be like, okay, I'm going to address this thing. Not in like I had a dream I was having sex with your brother last night, because I agree. Wouldn't say that.
Unhelpful. Yeah.
Yes. But would say, like, I know we've been long distance for, I don't know how much, I know he's deployed and I don't know how long you have on the phone to have like a deeper, more intimate conversation. Maybe it would have to wait till he comes home. I don't know if you guys can have 2 hours on the phone together to kind of go through this, or an hour or whatever it might take, but to be able to address it. Like, I know you've forgiven me. I know you've moved on, but I still, that's like one of the things I tell couples to do after a cheating incident, is for the couple, for the unfaithful partner to come and say randomly sometimes, like, hey, I haven't forgotten that I did this to you. And I just want you to know, I think about it and I will never do that to you again.
Right. I think people are scared to do that because they don't want to like re-feel the guilt, or maybe hear something
Yes.
they don't want to hear from the person, of feel more shame by
Yes.
like bringing it out into the open.
Yes. But her psyche is calling her, I
Yeah.
think, to address it and address her shame. And who better to address your shame with than the person who you hurt?
Yeah.
Because that might feel nice. I'm sure he hasn't like erased it from his memory. I know he's moved on and you guys don't talk about it and he probably feels great, but it can't hurt to say, I still think about this sometimes and I just want you to feel confident, and I still feel shame about that. This is your shame's way of coming up, and it's actually a good thing, I think, in a lot of ways. Although when you're in the midst of the dream, it doesn't feel like you're coming out of it like, oh my God, I'm a cheater, I did this in my dream. But I think what's really coming out is like, I'm shamed of this. If she was here, I'd be curious to know what the feeling is in the dream. If she's like,
Right. While she's doing it. Yeah.
yeah, if she's like feeling that shame or worried about it, or if it's just like purely like, a enjoyable sexual experience in the dream. But I'm curious to know about that, because sometimes the feeling, not sometimes, almost always, the feeling is more important than the content of the dream.
Right.
It's not about who she's, like she said, they're not even attractive. It's like increasingly getting more like
Random.
alarming. Yeah. Like, listen to me, pay attention to this. It's not about the content of the person that she wants that person. It's more.
Right. And then the feeling that she has of like this anxiety when she wakes up, and then it's sort of like intrusively she's thinking about it, probably makes it more likely to happen again. Cause then like, in your dreams, your subconscious is bringing everything to the surface that you're not trying to think about in your waking hours.
Yes.
So if she does address that, I would imagine that it could subside.
Yeah. I think my hunch is it really will subside if she isn't afraid of it. And I could see why she's afraid of it. I totally get it. I think anytime someone has any kind of sexual dream that's not their partner, it's like a little scary. Like, why is this happening? What is going on here? Am I really subconsciously wanting to sleep with someone else? And I don't think that has to be what it is. I think it can be more of just like there's a deeper emotion that you're not willing to feel. And again, like you said, the more shameful you are about the dreams, the more you repress whatever that is, and the more likely you are to dream about it. So I think if she can lean into it, acknowledge what's really going on, either just for herself or for her, because even as it's so fun, it's so interesting, in real time, as she's writing to us, she almost ended the email without telling us about the cheating.
Right. She probably doesn't want to talk about it.
Right. And then came back to like, okay, I have to be honest. So even in real time, as recent as a week ago or whenever she wrote in, she was kind of denying her shameful feelings, which is normal, normalize it. But that is what is, she says, what can help me stop dreaming about this? Make these stop. I think it's going to be acknowledging the shame, acknowledging how you feel about it, maybe talking to your partner about it in like not that explicit way, and just like pulling it up and out, maybe doing the rain meditation around this. Your feelings can really guide you, but not if you're afraid of them and repressing them and like pushing them away. Then they're not going to be able to guide you. They're just going to send you on a wild goose chase.
Agreed.
The intention that I wrote for her along those lines are, and this probably I kind of expanded it a little bit for others to maybe relate, is thoughts, emotions, and dreams can better guide me if I release my fear of them. So don't be afraid of these dreams. Like, they're just trying to speak to you. The other one, in the moment, like before bed, maybe you can tell yourself so you're not so afraid of dreaming, which might help make you not want to fall asleep or just kind of be anxious about going to bed. Am I going to have these dreams? Is I'm a loyal wife in real life. I will release my shame for thoughts or dreams. Thoughts are just thoughts. Dreams are just dreams. That you didn't do anything wrong.
Exactly. Tell that to every man who's ever watched porn.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Can't police your own thoughts. Anyway,
yes.
But good to address. All right.
Great question. Thank you.
Great question.
Appreciate it.
I'm sure a lot of people have dealt with some version of this.
Yes.
All right, let's do some triggers.
Okay, I will read the first one. Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi, writing in with a triggered moment from last week. I'm currently 29 weeks pregnant with my second child. My parents don't live in the same area as me and my family, but they were visiting last week when I had a check-in appointment with my OB. I invited my mom along because I thought it would be special for her to hear her future granddaughter's heartbeat. The appointment was going well when at the end, my OB asks, any other questions or concerns? I shook my head no when my mom, from her seat on the side of the room, goes, what do you think about her weight? Extra emphasis on the word weight. My OB goes, do you mean the baby's weight or so-and-so's weight? To which my mom says, so-and-so. Kind of weird, awkward moment in the room for sure. During the pause before my doctor goes, her weight is looking good, right on track. Then my mom decides to double down and says, well, because she's been eating a lot this pregnancy. I was so incredibly embarrassed. I couldn't believe she asked this. It was so awkward as I sat on the exam table with the crinkly paper, just looking down, shaking my head, clearly not amused and clearly not co-signing this question asking. My doctor paused, let out an uncomfortable laugh and said, Mom, you're going to get yourself uninvited to these appointments with those types of questions. I appreciated that he was trying to bring some levity to the moment, and also I couldn't have agreed more. No more appointment invites for Mom. When we left, I told her she really embarrassed me. I think my exact words were, way to put me on blast in there, Mom. She responded by saying, well, you told me you were going to ask him about your weight. I said, no, that's not accurate at all. Earlier in the day, I had made a passing comment of, I wonder what my weight will be because I don't have a scale at home and was just curious how different it would be from last month. As soon as they call your name for your appointment, first thing they do is put you on the scale before taking you to the exam room. So I immediately had my answer done. I explained this to my mom and she said, well, I only asked because I thought you wanted to ask and you just had forgotten. Another layer of triggered. I replied, Mom, if I had wanted to ask him a question, I would have. And that was a question I did not want to ask him. It really embarrassed me how you did that. Since then, my mom has apologized, saying she never intended to embarrass me. Another piece of background info that I'm sure is contributing to my sensitivity on this topic and specific moment is that my mom has always been extremely thin and places a lot of emphasis on counting calories and working out what often seems around the clock. She makes frequent comments about her and others' bodies, including my own. It has hurt my feelings on many occasions over the years and has historically made me self-conscious about the way I look. Not now, though. Thankfully, I feel happy and beautiful in my pregnant form, and I'm just thankful for all that my body is doing. I'm trying to move on from this whole thing, especially since she did offer a sincere apology. But I can't help that every time I think of this whole interaction, it makes me cringe with embarrassment. I still can't believe my mom would find it appropriate to do that in a doctor's appointment with her 28 weeks pregnant daughter. Let me know what you think. Thanks, ladies. Waiting before I invite you again.
This is very triggering. It's crazy. Would not invite this mom back, as she said. What's interesting to me is she wrote, I'm trying to move on from this whole thing, especially since she did offer a sincere apology. The apology doesn't sound that sincere to me. Like the way she describes the apology sounds like not like, oh, I could totally see how that would be embarrassing. I'm sorry for doing that. I don't, I think you look beautiful.
Yes.
Doesn't sound like there was any of that in there. It sounds like she was apologizing for like a miscommunication about who was going to
I
ask about
thought
the
you
weight.
want, yes, yes, yes. I thought you wanted me to ask. I thought you forgot. I don't know. It sounds like maybe there was another conversation that made her feel better, but I agree. Maybe that is why it's lingering, is because she doesn't really get it. And the idea that she does think that you need to lose weight, or you're not good the way you are, or there's something wrong with you. And because of all the history and context of her like being workout obsessive and weight obsessive. Yeah, I think the communication between them was probably like glossed over, surface level communication around what she's really feeling. This is hard. We had one of these a few weeks ago where like adult children communicating with their parents can sometimes feel like, all right, this isn't my partner. I don't have to deal with this every day. Like, it's very hard to think about like having this deep heart to heart right now when I can just like avoid the problem, um, and just not invite her to appointments anymore, which sounds like you should probably do anyway. But it sounds like maybe there is a bigger conversation. And I think the last one, we kind of gave some advice around the same thing, like addressing, it was about the mother with the daughter, where she was like making comments, or she was afraid she was going to make comments to her small child about her body.
Yeah.
And she had also been making comments throughout their childhood, and she was afraid that this was going to kind of keep happening. So if you can bring yourself to it, I think being able to express yourself like as if you were in a therapy session with your mom, what would you say? You would say, like, you've made comments about my body throughout my life. And that's part of why this felt so uncomfortable. And it would feel nice to hear some acknowledgement and ownership. Like you said, not just a sincere apology about this particular comment on this particular day in a more sincere way, but maybe there's a deeper feeling that needs to be addressed here.
Yeah. Especially when she tells the doctor. And I think this is almost the most triggering part. Because if one thing about if she's like, oh, you wanted to ask about the weight, I'd want you to forget, to say she's been eating a lot. To me, that's like, one, she lives out of town.
Right.
To me, I think that would be like the point I would harp on to my mom and be like, it feels like you're like watching and judging what I eat, which makes me feel really self-conscious around you and like judged by you. Someone
And
who's
you've been
supposed
doing
to,
that for decades, perhaps.
yes. To me, that's like the more triggering comment of like, you're telling the doctor how much I'm like, you think so whenever I'm eating, you're looking at me and you're thinking about how much and what it is.
Yeah.
And like this preoccupation that you're having is like, and then you're not only doing it in your head, but you're saying it out loud. So yeah, I agree. It's worth a conversation. It's a good opportunity, I think, to have it
Yes.
in like maybe like revisiting or coming back to the comment. And like, I'm sure, I mean, usually these things are much more about the person saying them. Like clearly she has her own. And I also get this feeling of like her mom's probably in her 50s or 60s. Like, is she going to suddenly become super body positive? Is she suddenly going to like not care about these things? Maybe it's like just kind of natural. And I can see why you'd want to avoid having this conversation by being like, well, what is really going to change? She's not going to like, at this point, I don't even see her that much, like whatever.
Right.
But I think if it really bothers her, I think it makes a lot of sense because she's going to see her. It's not like she's never going to see her again or she's never going to feel this way again.
Yeah. And sometimes it is therapeutic just to like say what you've been feeling, or like open up some childhood wounds, especially with the person that, was a part of that. I think there is some therapeutic, gain to be had there just by her sharing. And maybe her mom would say, I didn't know it made you feel that way. Maybe her mom is kind of aloof to how her own body image, eating, exercise stuff has been affecting her kids. I mean, again, I think younger people are so hyper aware. Like there's so much more parenting information out there, and people are like watching reels and memes and just so much more introspective about their parenting than I think the prior generation was. So she may not even realize like how all of her own comments have affected you. So there might be some communication there to be had of like, hey, just so you know, anytime you've commented on what I'm eating or not eating or my weight or my body, it, didn't make me feel good. And I just want to share that with you. I still love you. I still think you're a great mom. You did some amazing things. Like it doesn't have to, you don't want it to come off as like just completely scolding, but I think, to soften it a little so that maybe she's a little more receptive, you can say, I just can't stop thinking about that day in the OB office. And I was trying to figure out exactly why I was so like, I just couldn't let it go, even though you apologized. And this is kind of what I've come up with.
Right.
As a way of like owning it a little bit of like, this is something I'm experiencing. Yes, it was because of something that you did, but I just want to share with you like what's going on in my heart, in my mind.
Right. And then it makes it less about the communication or the miscommunication of who was supposed to ask about the weight and more about like what's really the real issue is, which is this kind of lingering resentment about the way she's talked about her body.
Yeah. And look, she's having a daughter. So maybe there is something where she can relate to that other listener of like, how is my mom going to be interacting with my daughter around this down the line?
Right.
So
all right, I'd give this a 6.5.
Yeah.
Especially for the she's been eating a lot comment.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a 7. I do think there's like, you're naked on that paper and like she's in the office and you're like, I just think it's a very vulnerable position in front of someone else, like a male doctor too, which probably maybe in some way makes it feel worse. Although he sounded like, he handled it well. He had her back. He was kind of like, not into that question. I give her a lot of credit for self-restraint. Like, I think if we polled 100 listeners, how they would have reacted if their mother did that, some of them might have been like lurching off of the table and like screaming.
Yeah, impressive.
Right. Like,
well, she probably felt like a little kid again, where, it's kind of what it sounds. She's like in this super vulnerable moment. Yes. Maybe the fact that she's not wearing any clothes also gives, I'll bump it up to the 7.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just something so, I think, vulnerable about being, and the way she handled it did seem timid and not assertive, especially at first, like in front of the doctor, like not saying anything instead of like turning to her and being like, I do think there was like a childlike regression in that moment of like, I just have to sit here while my mother like takes my Oreos out of my lunchbox or, whatever it is, and just like deal with it. Versus then after she said like, even her initial reaction comment was kind of like,
she said, you really embarrassed me.
Yeah.
There, I think. Yeah.
And it was not like a protective, like, what's the matter with you? Why would you do that? Like,
right. It wasn't aggressive.
Aggressive, which I'm not saying she had to be aggressive. It's nice. Like, I give her credit for responding that way, but it did seem like almost a kind of timid lack of empowerment in the way that she maybe felt. It seemed like in that moment where that childlike thing was probably very present.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I feel for you. I hope you, at least you said what you said. So that's a good start. If you can let it go, let it go. But if it lingers, maybe you do need a conversation with your mom around it. And like you said initially, a different, better, more, an apology that leans in a little bit more to what you were actually feeling.
Right. Rather than logistics of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's do one more.
All right.
Hi, Betches. I'm a huge fan of oversharing and been listening from the very beginning. I have a triggered scenario that happened earlier this year, and your recent episode about the bride's non-family member gifting her wedding photos for Christmas inspired me to write in. I got married last year and shared the gallery link with our immediate families and a couple of close friends. About 8 months later, I got a message from my photographer asking if I knew my new sister-in-law's name. My husband's sister has been getting into photography herself, so I figured she had reached out to my photographer for guidance or something. Turns out my sister-in-law had downloaded our entire gallery of 800 plus pictures, except the ones she was in, put her watermark on them, and uploaded them to her own website as an example of her work. I apologized to my photographer and let her know I would support whatever she did about it. She ended up only filing a claim to have my sister-in-law take down the pictures and contacted photographer Facebook groups in her city who removed her but didn't share the reason with others. Part of me wished she would have been shamed more publicly because I felt so wronged and taken advantage of. My husband and I have never told their parents or anyone else, but it's definitely crossed my mind. I was around an 8 on the triggered scale at the time, and I've since calmed down. But if I think about it too long, especially the fact that she completely got away with it, I could probably be that triggered again. So how triggered can I be if my sister-in-law steals my wedding photos for her own portfolio? That is crazy.
Yeah, that's awful.
She put her watermark on them? That's is like the most
point of the watermark at all is so that nobody can do that. And like, this is really
I mean, that is the most like blatant way you could possibly steal something. It's crazy.
Put her watermark on it. Like, I had this friend, this just reminds me, I had this friend in 4th grade. And whenever I played with her, she would take something from the house and bring it. I had these pump sneakers. Those of you that are older will maybe remember they were like Reebok pumps or something. And the idea was you could pump them and they would make you jump higher. They didn't work, but they were like, it was like a little gimmicky thing. And they were cool at the time. And she took them and then she wore them to school, and in like black Sharpie on the inside of the tongue, she wrote her name on them.
Wow.
Bold. So she was kind of like, okay, my name is on them now, so they are mine. And then I had Super Mario Brothers 3 video game, the newest. It was like, a big gift that I was like super excited about. She came over, the cartridge is gone, like looking around. And the next day she shows up to school and says, I got Super Mario Brothers 3. My parents just bought it for me last night with no box, but the cartridge. And it says her name on it in Sharpie. So this woman like has the mindset of a 4th grader where she's kind of like, all right, I'm going to take this, put my name on it. And now it's mine.
Yeah. Which is crazy as like a professional person. I mean, the obviously messed up to you, but like, this is just like fraud, like you said.
It's an adult and it's fraud and it's money, but like it just reminds me of like this mindset of like, okay, I could just steal something, put my name on it.
It's crazy, like it's almost like I can't imagine having that level of confidence to just be like, it's my public website that I'm just gonna take someone's. It's right there. It's like the same level of. I think the thing that's similar in the stories is just like the brazenness of it. It's like not hidden. It's not like it's like you said that's mine, and then she's like, no, I actually wrote this on it, like announcing that you've basically stolen.
And how did she not think she has her website? Her people that are in that wedding, you think would like go see her website, like her brother and her sister-in-law, that'd be like, oh, let me see your new photography website. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, wait,
right.
You weren't the photographer at our wedding. Like, I don't know how she didn't think she was going to get caught. The whole thing I wonder if she's like, I don't know.
Sounds like a sociopath.
Wrong. Yeah. There might be something wrong that she would have no idea that she would get caught and that there are implications and that this is fraud and theft and,
yeah. And that's embarrassing for her.
She's ever had something weird like this with this sister-in-law.
I mean, I would be like, because it sounds like she's triggered more that she's gotten away with it.
Right.
I mean, I think there's 2 levels to it. One, it's like a betrayal to like you're kind of I mean, I get it's the person who's the biggest victim is the photographer.
Right.
Who's having her work stolen from her. The next victim is the sister-in-law who's like one she's embarrassed by doing this to and putting her in a weird position.
Yeah.
Is like the other part of it. I wonder has the brother not said anything to her? Like, I'm trying
Yes.
to think if this happened in our family. I feel like there would be a discussion with the person of like,
Yes.
hey, it's also like, it's not even like she's like, hey, my photographer reached out and let me know, like, you put our wedding photos on your website, and she took out the picture of her, so she knew it was wrong and did this. Like, what's going? I think that that's the most infuriating. Like, doesn't sound like there's even been a conversation about it, which seems like a
Yes.
weird family dynamic. Because if I did that to you, or you said you were a photographer, and like I found all my wedding pictures on your website, like we would discuss it.
Yes. Yes. If you're having trouble letting it go and you haven't addressed it, like I know you want consequences, but maybe the consequence is that, or one of the consequences is that you actually address it, and then she's uncomfortable, or your husband, her brother, addresses it with her and says like, "Wow, that was crazy. Were you drunk? Like what? I
Why
don't
would you do that?
understand. Why
Yeah.
would you do that? Like that was embarrassing." She called me and said, "Is this do you know this person?" And I had to say yes. And I mean, you maybe not say, "Are you drunk?" You can come at it a little bit more kindly, and a little bit more softly and with some level of curiosity. But yeah, I think if you two have not had a conversation with her directly, I think that's the next step.
Yeah. And I almost think the fact that they haven't had a conversation is maybe why she's able to get away with doing something this intense. Like, clearly this is someone that's not been confronted about any crazy action she's done, because this is I feel like this is not the first weird fucked up thing you do. This is like, you'd probably be getting away with smaller versions of this for years, where no one's
Right.
confronting you or saying anything. Like, it almost seems like the fact that they haven't spoken to her about it is like why she's been able to get to this level. Because most people would get like called out for, like, if no one ever said anything to that fourth grade girl, I could see how she would do this.
Right. Yes.
But eventually you would imagine someone, I don't know if it was you, someone would be like, this is stealing. You can't do
Right.
this.
Right. And another interesting layer is that she's marrying into this. So you're right. I don't know. I'm speculating. Come back at us if you are listening and you wrote this email, and clarify if this is wrong. But like, if there was no conversation about it and she put this up knowing that her family members would probably see at some point her professional website, right? Like if you had a professional website, I'll probably check it out at some point.
I've seen your NaomiBernstein.com.
Right. And especially you're referring somebody like to a photographer. She probably thought her brother might be signing on to this fraud. Like,
or at least not
care.
Yeah. Or at least not getting into it. Yeah.
Yes. Like you're saying, there might be a culture of like, we accept some of these like moral, questionable morals in our family, or we don't call each other out on these things, which allowed her to go ahead and post it without fear in the first place. And now you're marrying into this and you're kind of like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, what's this dynamic where people do fraudulent stuff and nobody like calls them out on it or addresses it? So that might be kind of what's happening. Like a lot of these newly married, joining family things come up around like, your family dynamic is anyone can do whatever they want and nobody's going to call them out on something that's like really immoral and sketchy. And my family dynamic is if somebody does something like this, there's going to be a conversation about it,
right,
and someone's going to call them out.
Totally. And now they're married. So it's like, how are
of cultures?
Yes. But also like, now we're married, maybe we're going to have kids. What is the culture that we're going to be bringing them into? And how does your upbringing and the way you deal with your sister's fraud affect like the way you would deal with our kid doing something that was immoral like that? And I think, all kids or all people as they're growing up, maybe like experiment with doing something a little shady or a little weird. I'm sure I've done that. Or like, I remember our sister tried to have me put a candy bar in my bag or something. And then like the way that people react to that, I think I remember like when we were kids, one of our sisters was like, put this in it was like a chocolate bar. We were at the supermarket. Yeah. From like a grocery store. She was like, just put it, like, let's see what happens.
Right.
And then we got outside and we showed our dad and we were like, look, like, free chocolate bar. And he like was like screaming at us. He's like, that's not what you know what I mean? Like the way that's almost like the first, I think, time you're able to see, like, how does the world respond to me, like, beating the system?
Yes.
And that's why it's so important to do that, I think, super early on. Like, clearly with that girl who stole your shoes, I don't think that was happening if she did something a little weird like that. And I don't think it's the kid's fault for doing something like testing the waters or like, because they don't know how intense the rules are, or like they're not a bad kid or a good kid. But I think that's a really important example to set pretty early on. I never stole a candy bar again after that.
Yes. Yeah. And maybe this is a conversation for you and your husband about, like, how are we going to handle these types of things? And was this something growing up that, like, I'm sure there are families out there where it's like, all right, if you got away with it, good for you. Or like, no big deal. Like, it's not the end of the world. You're not, whatever justification people make for these types of immoral behaviors, that maybe is worth you guys having a conversation about as you're moving into creating a family together, or even just your moral code in general for the two of you and what's acceptable and unacceptable.
Yeah.
So
this does seem bigger than just this thing, which is big already, but
yeah. All right. Look, all these little moments, these triggering things that come up, a lot of times they are a communication that something's brewing under the surface that needs to be addressed in a bigger picture. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. Maybe it's a good thing. If this didn't happen, we wouldn't be having this conversation and becoming more intimate, more connected. Again, not, jumping at it with judgment. I wouldn't say like, were you drunk? That probably isn't a great way to communicate. I would just come at it, maybe with your husband first, as like, what do you make of this? Like, maybe we should address it with her and see, more importantly, between the two of you before then again addressing the sister. So
agreed. Yeah. I don't think she needs public shaming if she can get private family shaming, which doesn't sound like it's happened here. I would settle for private family shaming for this one, but I'd give this like, I mean, it's like a 9 if you're the 9.5 if you're the photographer. For the sister-in-law, I would give it like a 7.5.
Yeah, I agree. That sounds about right. Oh gosh, keep them coming. These stories are really, they're great, and we can really dig down and see what's going on underneath all of this. So thank you guys so much for writing in, being vulnerable with us, and helping all the listeners in the meantime. So
we do appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. That's our time.
Great work today.